Photoshop Touch, what we're doing in digital publishing, what we're doing with our video publishing solution. We're also going to go into some of our technology tooling, and of course we're also going to talk about what's coming up in Photoshop, the next version of Photoshop, which I think you'll find very exciting. Our mission at Adobe hasn't changed. We continue to focus on really changing the world through digital experiences. I like to think that Adobe is about that beautiful cross-section of art and technology, and more importantly, it's about putting that power in the hands of our customers and our users. This past year and moving forward, there have been two key trends that have really focused our efforts and our business. The first is really looking at tablet devices as being more than just content consumption in terms of just watching videos and reading publications, but they've really been focusing on content creation as well. And we'll talk about some of the innovation that we've been looking at and creating in terms of content creation. The second half of the conversation is really going to be about extending user value and customer value beyond creation. Obviously, we've been focused on creating tooling for designers and developers for many, many years at Adobe. We've seen in the last couple years a real opportunity to help our customers move beyond creation to actually publishing output, and more importantly, build businesses around that output. And we've seen some significant changes happening in the industry that I think are very positive for everybody, including a lot of our publishing partners. So with that, what I would like to do is jump right into, I think, one of the most exciting things that we announced this week at Mobile World Congress. We introduced Photoshop Touch on the iPad. Photoshop Touch we had previously introduced on Android. Last November we released it. We've seen significant momentum on Android, and now we're absolutely thrilled to see Photoshop Touch on the iPad. When we released on Android, everyone asked, when are you going to be available on the iPad? Of course, we already had that under development, and we're thrilled to be releasing it this week. Already, the momentum that we've seen in just one day with Photoshop Touch on the iPad has been quite overwhelming. It's at, I think it's number 2 on the top paid list in terms of the App Store. And so that's the kind of customer traction that we were very excited to see today. A few things just to speak about what we're delivering with Photoshop Touch. It's really important to think of Photoshop Touch not as a port of Photoshop onto the iPad, but actually a reimagination of Photoshop on this type of form factor. So really taking advantage of that direct user manipulation, leveraging the touch input is absolutely critical when you're thinking about Photoshop Touch. We not only focus on delivering the core features of Photoshop on the iPad, but we actually reimagined some new features that are only applicable to this form factor and are actually not available on the desktop version. And I think that this is really an important trend to note. Adobe's approach to touch applications is to do just that, and Photoshop Touch is a great example of that. Some of the key things beyond the core features that I'll show you in just a minute are the fact that sharing is just something that's natural to Photoshop Touch on this form factor. Two things to keep in mind. It's really about having the availability to pull images into Photoshop Touch. So whether or not you're doing a Google image search, for example, and taking an image and incorporating it in your composite, or if it's about sharing what you've created to Facebook as quickly as possible, that's really how Photoshop Touch has been reimagined for today's user. Another really important point to call out about Photoshop Touch is its integration with the Creative Cloud. Last fall, we introduced the Creative Cloud as a solution for designers and developers to basically extend their creative workflow. The tablet has given designers the opportunity to design on the go. the fact that we can now take the content that a designer creates on a tablet device, bring it into the Creative Cloud, and allow a designer to take that art and that vision further by leveraging the power of their desktop tools is a workflow that customers have been talking to us about for quite some time. This is very much in line with the vision that we're trying to deliver with the Creative Cloud and the Creative Cloud membership moving forward. We imagine that not only will more applications be part of that overall subscription offering, but also hosted services will be tied to that as well. And we can go into more depth about the Creative Cloud at the end of the presentation, but for now, what I would like to do is just focus on the power of Photoshop Touch. Okay? Another really important point to make about Photoshop Touch is the pricing. The pricing in euros is $7.99. And one of the things that's really critical to understand is that we priced Photoshop Touch for adoption. So we felt that there was a real opportunity to put Photoshop in the hands of many more users, and many users who are actually new to Photoshop. And you'll see when I demonstrate the interface and the approachability as well as some of the additional content that we have in Photoshop Touch that it's very well positioned to do that. Okay. Do we have the connector or the dongle? That would be great.
Some question?
Yeah.
Just about the Rise Just iPad 2. What is the technical reason for non-compatibility for the first version of iPad?
Yeah, well, we're really leveraging the power of the hardware. So one of the things that we're doing with Photoshop Touch is we're taking advantage of the advanced hardware of the iPad 2 versus iPad 1 is just a lesser device.
Okay.
Photoshop and the power that we have in Photoshop Touch definitely leverages that added capability in the iPad 2.
So hardware capability of the first version is not enough for a good...
yeah, we want to have it to be a very compelling user experience, and so our standard is a bit higher to deliver that type of experience for our users.
Thank you.
Yeah, we continue, this is one of the key advantages that Adobe has actually, the fact that we have relationships and tight connections with silicon manufacturers as well as hardware manufacturers really allows us and our scientists to really think about leveraging the power as more equipment and more hardware is introduced into the marketplace. We're always thinking of ways that we can bring more power to our applications, which I think is an advantage for the user as well. You'll continue to see that type of innovation from us. Speaking of close partnerships with hardware manufacturers, I'm not sure how many of you saw the announcement that we made with Samsung around the Galaxy Note 10.1 and the S Pen support. This you can actually see in our booth at the show as well as the Samsung booth. It's pretty pervasive. We've had a long collaboration with Samsung to focus on bringing pen capabilities to the Galaxy Note 10.1. One of the things that's important to note about our partnership with Samsung and this particular device is that the stylus is not just a capacitive stylus, it's actually pressure sensitive. And so as a user, you can actually use the pressure sensitivity of the stylus to control your brush strokes, for example. So imagine as if you were using a paintbrush or actually a pen on a piece of paper. The more you press, the wider your stroke, and then you can even feather out your strokes at the end. It's a very unique experience, one that is very much in line with what some people have experienced using a tablet that's attached to their desktop. So I highly recommend if you haven't tried it out, you try it out because it's quite unique. Other key things that we've called out with Photoshop Touch as well as Adobe Ideas is leveraging the button on the pen to do things like picking up colors and then dropping colors. Also things like the eraser on the other end, which is just fun, clearly from a user perspective. I think what I'll do now while we're waiting, Miguel, do you think I should go ahead and gather around for the iPad, or should I go through the presentation? Any suggestions on what you'd like to see?
Let me see if the connector is coming.
Yeah. I have so many demos, and you can either gather around, but it might be best to wait for the...
Go ahead, because maybe, with the front...
Do you want to... Okay.
Or Or maybe just wait a couple of minutes.
Of some of the announcements and the momentum that we talked about this week in Barcelona is digital publishing. Digital Publishing Suite is something that we've introduced a little over 1 year ago. And what we wanted to update you on this week is some of the momentum that we've seen behind the Digital Publishing Suite among some of our customers. Because we've had success in the Digital Publishing Suite, we've been able to gather a lot of market data, which I think is very interesting to talk about the momentum behind digital publishing and how these types of devices are really transforming the way that people are publishing content. As you recall, print publications and a lot of the content that was put on the web, the type of user interaction that people were realizing was for a limited period of time. So the average time that people were spending on any kind of web content was roughly around 10 minutes, give or take. What we found with digital publishing and the real opportunity that people are excited about is the fact that users are engaging much more deeply with the content. And so instead of 10 minutes, on average, users are spending anywhere from 25 minutes to 2.5 hours engaging with the content. How many people have actually viewed a magazine on a tablet device? Yeah? Okay. So you understand that the level of engagement is somewhat unique.
Sorry.
That's okay. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you so much. I'll just continue with this, and then I'll do many demos. What we found is that not only have a number of applications been published with the Digital Publishing Suite, around 1,500, but 16 million applications have actually been downloaded by end users. And so this really speaks to the momentum that users are excited with this level of engagement with this type of content, which I think is really exciting for the publishing industry as a whole. Another key point to call out is that the adoption is on a global basis, and so worldwide we've seen roughly 600 publishers who are actually starting to adopt this type of solution. One of the things that we really focused on when we first introduced the Digital Publishing Suite was focusing at the high-end publishers. Now what we're doing is really broadening that offering to make it much more approachable from a usage as well as a pricing perspective to more of the independent publishers, which I think is even more exciting. So it's about refining what that workflow was at the high end and now making that more broadly approachable and available for a much broader audience, which I think is really exciting because now everyone can play with this type of engagement for their end users and for their readership. So I think that's exciting. If you haven't looked at digital publishing in the last year, I highly recommend you look at it again. The development team on digital publishing is constantly adding new capabilities and innovating and doing additional releases. And this very much speaks to adding that additional capability to the output as well as the type of interactivity that publishers expect to see. From a business perspective, the impact that this type of engagement has had on the industry is quite substantial. That level of engagement that I was talking about in terms of the time that users are spending has actually created an environment where users are willing to pay for content. So not only is there a lot of time spent in these publications, but users are willing to pay money for it. And what we're finding is it's not just that they're buying individual applications as part of their purchasing, they're also buying subscriptions. And probably most exciting for a publisher is a lot of the users are actually buying both print and digital. And so from a publisher's perspective, that level of engagement, that cross-channel readership is something that's really exciting. And what we've been trying to do with the digital publishing offering is offer the publishers flexibility in terms of the pricing models. They can go through the newsstand. They don't have to go through the newsstand. It can be part of the subscription that they already manage. They can allow someone who's subscribing to the print offering to actually sign right in. And so I'll show you some of that flexibility. And that's really based on the fact that we support not only what we have as part of the digital publishing system, but we allow publishers the flexibility to manage their own shopping cart right within the application. And I'll show you a quick example of that. That's made possible by supporting technologies like HTML5, for example. So another key thing just to call out, not only is the content that the publisher is creating getting a lot of traction, but the advertisers are actually very excited about this as well. And so publishers are actually able to have a true advertising model around digital publishing as well. I'll show you some examples of advertisements that no longer look like advertisements. They're actually highly interactive, and sometimes they're even games embedded within the actual application, which I think is just a fun way of really looking at publishing in a new and different way. Okay? So I'm going to pause for a moment, and I'm going to put this in.
¿Me puedes pasar una botella? Una verde, la verde. Una botella verde con gas. Ah, gracias. Si tiene gas. Que no sabía que tenías con gas. Esta.
Oh, lovely. Okay.
We have lots of games.
Well, you know. I don't know what you're talking about. So this is Photoshop Touch. How many have seen Photoshop Touch? How many have used it? Oh. Really? Okay. So you'll notice right away when you look at Photoshop Touch, the user interface is very different from the desktop version of Photoshop. One of the things that we wanted to do from a product development perspective is really focus on that streamlined user interface and a very intuitive feel around the interface. Another thing that I mentioned earlier is that we wanted to make it very approachable for the user. So for a new user who has never used Photoshop, we wanted to step them through like all the powerful things that they could do in Photoshop Touch. And for an experienced user like Stephen here, who understands Photoshop and all the ins and outs, a lot of the common behaviors and metaphors that are applicable in Photoshop are also applied here in Photoshop Touch. And so if you understand masking and layers and everything like that, this would be very familiar for you. So I'm going to just walk you through two tutorials very quickly and just show you the power of Photoshop Touch and how quickly it is possible to get really interesting results. So as I mentioned, the team created a lot of tutorials to help the novice user. In this particular case, I'm going to select the woman and I want to add dramatic flair. You can see here immediately, as from a user's perspective, I know what I'm going to start with and I know what my result is going to be. And the tutorial is going to take me step by step and show me exactly how I'm going to achieve that result. So hopefully I will get somewhat close to that end result based on the tutorial. So there is our image, and clearly you can see in the interface on the left-hand side I have a toolbar where I have a lot of the common tools that I'm familiar with in Photoshop. Along the top I have a lot of additional effects that I can apply, and then of course along the right-hand side I see my different layers outlined. If you look at the bottom of the screen right here, you can see the steps of the tutorial. Really simple things. So I can select my layer and then I can go ahead and play with my toolbar, and you can see the fluidity right in the interface. It's just very fun to use. I'm going to select my scribble selection tool. The scribble selection tool is one of those features that's unique to the tablet and unique to Photoshop Touch. What it allows me to do is I can actually draw directly on the image of this woman and outline her body and focus on the areas that we want to keep. Now, obviously, I'm not very good at drawing, but that's okay because Photoshop's going to do a lot of that heavy lifting for me. The next thing I'm going to do following the tutorial is I'm going to go ahead and remove the area of the image that I don't want to keep. And I'm going to compute what that mask actually looks like but I want to refine it a little bit more. So my tutorial is going to tell me, well, clearly you do need to refine it a little bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and select Refine Edge. And again, the whole aspect of this direct manipulation is incredibly powerful for the user. And I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And it's a little bit better than I was before. And then what it's going to tell me to do is move to the next step. It's going to say add another layer from selection. And then it's going to tell me to go ahead and select what that background is. Get rid of that. And then it's going to tell me to add another effect. So I'm going to go up to my effects menu over here. I'm going to choose a Sleepy Hollow effect. Just a second. I'm going to choose a Sleepy Hollow effect. And it's basically going to bring up...
You just swap to the other.
Oh, thanks. There we go. I'm going to take that Sleepy Hollow effect, and then I can basically determine how much I want on that particular image. I'm going to hit Apply. And then I can even do things like I can add additional effects. So let's say I want to go back here and I want to add some additional blur. I can go ahead and do that as well. So you can see the type of responsiveness and the type of power that I'm able to get right within Photoshop Touch. I'm going to go ahead and apply. And of course, I got ahead of myself in terms of the tutorial, but the fact that the tutorial is walking the user through makes it incredibly easy, incredibly intuitive for the end user. So the next thing I want to show you is I want to show you something that's a little bit more fun. Again, another feature that's taking advantage of Photoshop Touch and the tablet capabilities, and the fact that there's an integrated tablet or integrated camera right within the tablet. So we always like to use this fun example, and Steven's going to be my pirate here. And this is just a really fun thing to do in terms of engaging, with the application as well as the folks around you. So my tutorial says create an empty layer, and then it's going to say drag that layer down. And you'll note even that direct manipulation of dragging the layers is just incredibly intuitive, very simple to use, and just a whole lot of fun. In this particular case, I'm going to add camera fill. Again, another Photoshop Touch specific feature. Come on, give me a pirate face. There you go. You might be the best so far. I don't know. Definitely, I'm going to keep that one. Yeah. That's so funny. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and... I got ahead of myself again. I get so excited about it. There we go. And I'm going to take this guy, that layer, and I'm going to transform the hat so it actually fits Steven's head. Move it around a little bit. That looks somewhat okay. There we go. And that looks pretty good. That eye patch seems to be a little bit large for you. So let's transform that little guy. That's a little bit better. There we go. And now, Steven clearly seems like a scary pirate, which I think is a lot of fun. But again, this is, a great way that users can use the tablet-specific features. A lot of fun. We've seen a lot of folks already share these images directly out to Facebook. In fact, our own CTO shared his own pirate images right out to Facebook. So it's just a whole lot of fun. We're really excited about that.
Can you share this picture just to,
I'm not connected.
For the articles?
Oh, yeah. That's right. Yeah, we'll send this to all of you. So Stephen will be... I'd actually pay for that. Wonderful. So that's Photoshop Touch, just very quickly. Since I got ahead in the presentation, what I'd like to do now is show you some of the things that our customers are doing with the Digital Publishing Suite, just very quickly. I'll give you a couple of examples. If you recall when I was talking about the flexibility of the business model, and, of course, I'm not connected. Hold on. One of the things, this is a great example of what Condé Nast and Wired Magazine has done. This is actually an application that's embedded within the Wired application that's in the newsstand. What's interesting about this is all done in HTML5, and what Wired Magazine has been able to do is actually access their own subscription system and allow users to access their accounts right within the application. And so the DPS system is all about providing people that flexibility. So if they wanted to cross-promote other magazine titles, or they wanted to have an opportunity for their users to sign in if they've already signed up as part of their print subscription, it's really providing users that type of flexibility. But I think what's more compelling, or equally compelling, about the digital publishing solution is the actual level of engagement that users are seeing. So if you've used these magazines before, you understand that the interface, is very intuitive. You can access the full table of contents right within the application. Advertisements are so much better than they were a few years ago in terms of that direct manipulation. It gives the user a completely different level of engagement with advertisements, which I think is really exciting. We've seen some advertisers take advantage of the interactive overlays, which I just showed you, and then some advertisers have actually gone beyond that. Let me show you an example of what a credit card company has done. Most people don't get excited when they see credit card ads, or at least I do not get excited when I see credit card ads. But what Citi has done is they've taken the advertisement a step further by leveraging HTML5. In this particular case, they've created a game. And so just a really fun game around catching the coffee cups with your cell phone. But from an advertiser's perspective, this level of engagement, and more importantly, the length of time, I'm very bad at this game, the length of time that a user's spending engaging in this is really, really fun and something that they're very excited about. Just a quick example of what they're doing with advertisements. What's equally interesting, I think, is how publishers have taken advantage of the rotation of the screen and the fact that they've really looked at different ways to take advantage of the horizontal and or the landscape and portrait modes of the actual device. A great example of this is this interactive app. So here we see a beautiful picture of Switzerland, but if I turn the device this way, I get this beautiful interactive map where I could do things like look at images from Zurich, or even potentially look at videos of people who are actually summiting a particular peak. So just really compelling ways to engage with content, completely different experience than what we've seen in the past. Another key development that we've seen with digital publishing is the fact that not only are magazine publishers leveraging the solution to meet their users' needs. Another great example is Sotheby's, a fairly famous auction house. They publish a catalog to high net worth individuals to make them aware of all of the auctions that they have online. In this particular case, this is a catalog that they've produced to distribute out. Typically, they would print out the publication, send it out via post. Now they make the app freely available so that anyone, even if you don't have €500,000 to spend on a porcelain box, anyone can access the catalog and interact with it, which I think is quite exciting. Fun things like I can actually drill in and look at the level of detail behind the applications to really appreciate it. I can do things like take notes. So if this particular piece is of interest to me, I can actually keep my own personal catalog of the fine artwork, which I think is just an interesting use case. Another great example, Red Bull. Are you familiar with Red Bull, the energy drink? So Red Bull does a lot around branding. And really fun, innovative way that they've taken their design work to the next level. This is one of my favorite examples of just really compelling design. This is their brand magazine, but they've really taken their design work, I think, just to the next level. And this is how we're seeing users just push the limits in terms of the capability. And again, all of this has happened in just a little over 1 year. And I can't even tell you how excited I am to see what's going to happen in the following year. So a lot of exciting innovation from our customers leveraging the solution. Okay. Next, I would like to talk a little bit about our video solution. So just like we've seen a lot of progress from our customers in the last year, we want to do the same thing to help them on video publishing and video publishing of internet-based video across devices. So we're introducing a new project called Adobe Project Primetime, which is really focused on a video publishing solution or a video technology platform. What Project Primetime does is it takes into account not only our publishing capabilities around our streaming technologies and our digital rights management capabilities with Adobe Access, but it stitches together the analytics and measurement that we have with some of the Omniture services as well as our Demdeck services, and then brings it together with advertising with the recent acquisition that we did with Adobe. The reason why this is really exciting for people who are producers or publishers in the premium video space, is right now it's very difficult to have not only a productive production experience, but it's really difficult to have a compelling user experience. So right now, if you're a premium video provider, you publish a video, if you want to insert an ad, the user experiences buffering between the premium content and then the advertisement. So how many of you have seen premium video and then you see the circle of the buffered ad that's coming up? That actually causes users to move on to the next thing or go to a different provider, and that's a real problem for video producers. So we want to solve that problem for them. That's what Project Primetime's focused on. It's focused on not only helping producers create that best possible experience, so it's very much like watching television, where it's seamless between the premium programming and the advertising, so there's no drop-off. But on the production side, we want to make it very easy to and quick and fast to allow a producer to insert ads in real time. A great scenario to highlight as part of that is sports. So imagine you're a video producer and your job is to identify and clip the highlights of a football game. It's a very competitive market where speed and time to market is essential. The first person who is able to identify those highlights will secure the most premium ads. So what Project Primetime allows you to do with the Auditude ad insertion is actually do the clips very quickly, insert the ads, target the ads, and then measure the impact. And so the fact that all of these things are pulled together is of huge value to those particular producers. This is something that has existed in high-end broadcast and television broadcast. What we're doing now is we're bringing that to internet premium video as well. And so this is something that publishers, specifically video publishers, are very, very excited about because it solves a very critical problem for them. Okay. For the sake of time, I'm going to quickly go on to the next part of the video solution. Very quickly, our customers are constantly asking us for more reach. So we're introducing support around our digital rights management and Adobe Access to iOS. This was an area that customers have been asking us for, and we're pleased to say that now we've broadened that reach of our overall video solution, which is good. And then finally, the final point here around the standards support is we will continue to work with our ecosystem and our partners and our standards groups to make sure that we support the latest standards in all of our solutions. And this is just an example as it relates to the video space. Okay. Very quickly, developer solutions. We have a couple of key things that we want to introduce around developer solutions. This week, we introduced or we released the developer release of Air 3.2. You might recall strategically last year we decided to take into consideration our customer feedback and really focus our efforts around Flash and Air on Premiere Video, as I just showed you. But we've also been focusing our efforts around driving innovation for 2D and 3D gaming by taking advantage of hardware acceleration across devices. So one of the things that has been critically important for us is to make sure that we make developing applications across devices as fast and performant as native applications. And I'll show you a couple of examples at the end before I turn it over to Stephen that showcases the fact that we've taken advantage of the hardware and we're getting the same frame rates that are on par with native applications. And I'll show you a couple of games and the responsiveness as well as the rendering, which is, I think, quite compelling and very exciting for developers who do not want to build natively because they're used to the tools that they've grown accustomed to, and more importantly, they want that broadest reach possible. And then the final point in terms of our developer tooling is our continued investment and innovation on HTML5. Not only are we bringing new tools to bring to bear on the market in terms of Adobe Edge, which focuses on interactivity, much in the way that Flash Professional has in the past. But we've also been focusing on making sure that our users can leverage HTML5 in digital publishing. They can leverage HTML5 in terms of video streaming. They could leverage HTML5 also because we've been partnering with Apple and Google, et cetera, to make the runtime environment, i.e. our contributions with the W3C and with WebKit. We're continuing to take the innovation that we applied to Flash in the past and pushing it through web standards as well, which I think is very exciting for developers who really want that broad reach and want to realize the promise of HTML5. So key point here is continued innovation on the underlying technology that basically makes all of this possible. And before I turn it over to you, I just want to show you two examples on the gaming side, which I think are, one will illustrate the speed of the hardware acceleration, and then the second will focus on, well, it's just really quite beautiful, but it'll show how how Air is able to take advantage of all of the aspects of the hardware and the device, which is just a really fun, somewhat silly application. So this is a great example of a game. It's called Waste Invaders, and it's a game. But what it allows you to do, you can see the frame rate. So this is a game that was built in Air, and if you want to just give it a go and just see the responsiveness. It's just really responsive, and you're pretty good.
Yeah.
You might have high score.
Oh.
You just.
Never seen
I've never seen that.
And that's with the left hand. Enough?
Yeah, you're good.
Whoa.
I know he's winning. Wow. I know. Very impressive. But I think you saw the responsiveness, and it's pretty amazing, actually, to see that kind of responsiveness for the game. And we're very excited about what the 2D and 3D hardware acceleration was able to do. This next game, actually, it's I just think it's absolutely beautiful and clever game, and it has some unique, it has some very unique features that go along with this. Have you seen this one?
I haven't seen this one.
Oh, this is. Oh, it's a little blurry.
Oh.
So, just very clever use of, the device in terms of wiping off the fog that's on the screen. Sorry, I need to do a little bit more.
There is no winter on Whale
So this is a little bit silly, but what I wanted to show you is in the game, one of the things that's been really important to our users as it's loading is really taking advantage of all of the device capabilities. So the developer in this particular case had really clever ways of managing input, and they wanted to take advantage of the microphone. So what they did was if you can see what happens is if you blow into the, you can have leaves go across, and if you do it long enough, which I'll get dizzy, you can actually make it snow as part of the environment. And so it's just a great example of how we're really extending the robustness of the platform to take advantage of all elements of the hardware. And this is something that we want to do all of that heavy lifting. In some cases, developers will think of different ways of innovating around it, and then they can leverage things like native extensions to push it even further. But that's just, I think, a couple of cute examples of how we can continue to innovate on the underlying technology to what we're delivering. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Stephen, and while he's getting set up, again, just to close on what we announced this week, two key things. We've moved on devices from content consumption to content creation with the announcements that we've made around Photoshop Touch, and you'll see more innovation from us in that particular area. And then on the other side of what we're talking about here today, it's really around moving beyond creation for a lot of our solutions to looking at the entire solution from creation to publishing to monetization, and so that broader spectrum. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over